The High Representative for EU Foreign Policy, Josep Borrell, accused Israel of creating and funding the Palestinian movement Hamas, which they are currently facing in their war in the Gaza Strip. The diplomat was blunt in affirming that in their attempt to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state, the Israeli government not only created the Palestinian terrorist group Hamas, but financed it to weaken the Palestinian Authority. The harsh criticisms and questions were made during his speech after being honoris causa doctor invested by the University of Valladolid. In that same line, Borrell defended the two-state solution and ensured that the Israeli Prime Minister has been personally boycotting it for the past 30 years. In this sense, Borrell emphasized that the terrorist group Hamas has been financed by the Israeli government to try to weaken the Palestinian Authority, headed by al-Fatah. In view of this situation, Borrell has defended that a two-state solution must be imposed from the outside to bring peace to the region. Hamas was created in December 1987, shortly after the Palestinian uprising of the First Intifada by a group of Islamist militants. The acronym in Arabic for Movement of Islamic Resistance, Hamas was founded to counteract Islamic Jihad and to rival with the Palestine Liberation Organization, known as OLP, a mainly secular movement led then by Yasser Arafat. 20 years later, in June 2007, Hamas took control of the Gaza Strip after almost a civil war against Arafat's successor and president of the Palestinian Authority, which partially administers occupied West Bank. In recent years, Qatar has sent millions of dollars in aid to Gaza, despite the Israeli blockade of the territory, provoking criticism of the Israeli Prime Minister for favoring the financing of Hamas, which controls the Strip. The Prime Minister denies these accusations. For his accusations, Borrell is based on recent history. In 1978, Israeli military co-opted Palestinians by financing Quranic madrasas, which are Islamic religious schools, feeding a fundamentalism opposed to the secularism of the OLP to weaken it. In 1979, the U.S. applied that doctrine in Afghanistan, armed al-Qaeda against the USSR. In 1981, Israeli General Yitzhak Seiv declared the government of Israel gave me money and gave it to the mosques in Gaza. It was a way to sow the seeds of Hamas, which grew on Palestinian frustration for not acquiring a state. Arafat paid the political cost. In 2013, the former head of Israeli security stated that over the years, the most contributed to strengthening Hamas has been the prime minister, and that he has done so since his first government in 1996. In 2019, the former Israeli premier, Ehud Barak, said that the plan of the current prime minister has always been to keep Hamas alive and kicking, at the cost of abandoning the Israelis of the south, neighbors of Gaza, to weaken the OLP in the West Bank. The logic was that, through Hamas, it is easier to explain to the Israelis that there is no one to talk to them, and the same to the rest of the world if they ask Israel to recognize the Palestinian state and stop the massacre of civilians. The Israeli Prime Minister and Hamas are mortal enemies that oppose the existence of two states. This symbiosis requires one another to be in power. These are the historical references that Borrell based on to accuse the Israeli state of funding the terrorist group Hamas, which last 7 October massacred Israeli civilians and children in their own territory, a fact that today brings them into bitter confrontation.